answer the question.
I don't trust this. I'm just going to speak loud. For the first time probably at any event that we've ever had, half of our panel has a non-American accent. So kind of dovetailing off of the last question, Mick and Rowan, is there anything from your, I guess, country of origin about their design sensibility and the trends that you see there, that has informed the way that you design and do your work here in the States, and what are the main differences, if any?
A challenging question. I'm going to do the same, just wave it around. Like
It's my wand.
Yeah. These days, it's really interesting. I've been gone for 10 years since I lived in Australia now. I lived in Europe for a little while. I've been here for 10.5 years actually. And I've obviously, my upbringing there was in a small country town, 4 hours off the coast, middle of nowhere. I could see the horizon in 360 degrees. So, I mean, obviously your experiences shape the way you think, and you have perspective. Like sometimes when looking for influences, I'll think back on where I've been and different places such as that. But the general trends and themes that are picking up in places, while it's still locality-based, the internet has just blown everything up crazy. Styles I see from here are the same things I'll see in Japan, are the same things I'll see in Sydney, and there's just so much crossover now. It's interesting because if you look at any designers you work with and see where they take their influence from, like directly, they're getting online and they're looking things up and they're seeing what other people have done, and that's a global thing, and that's just taken off so fast. There's still definitely an underground scene, I like to think, to every city where people have a certain style. You certainly see at any awards show you can go to around here, there's always the Texan pieces where you're like, that's got a real Texan flair to it, you know, it looks kind of cowboy or something. And you can kind of pin that down, but I think it's definitely getting lost, which is a little bit sad. But really, I think that the greatest thing you can do as a designer is still to travel and go into the supermarket and have a look at cereal boxes and have a look at the more traditional things that have been around for a while and try and get to the bottom of that, because seeing how other people have solved in the past a lot of the challenges that we still get now is invaluable. And I think I'm totally off topic now. But
You're allowed.
That's right. I'm going to hand the talking wand around.
Let's see. Well, I've been here a long time, so I don't know if that sort of influence really affects me anymore. And obviously, the web is great because I go look on the web and see what's happening in Japan and stuff like that. But I think one of the sort of greatest failings, I think, for that I see anyway, that sort of is different from what goes on in other countries, I think, is that we sort of do a lot of stuff in terms of design that sort of solves the problem. It doesn't really go sort of beyond that. And I know a lot of that is to do with, okay, I don't have a lot of time to do it, I don't have a lot of scope, fee, whatever, and I just want to get it out the door. And I think that's sort of a major failing. But the projects that I see that are good, and it's in America, and it's in Europe and wherever, are the ones that sort of have taken the challenge and then just gone a whole heap more than the client or anybody else ever expected. And I think those are the successful projects. So I don't know if it's, you know, people doing great stuff in France, Spain, Australia, whatever. I think everyone's doing some great stuff. It's just, you know, it's your process and your result.
I have a question that leads right into all of this, and it's directed to you, Stephen. This past year, as far as I'm concerned, one of the greatest masterpieces around the world occurred right here in Houston. It was the opening of the Museum of Fine Arts Asian Arts Gallery. And Culture Map did a remarkable job of covering it from the beginning of the whole execution, which is very rare for an artist to open his process, to make his process of production public, to a public that could pass through, that could celebrate the end result at a beer bar. It was a masterpiece of everything that we're talking about tonight. Design, commerce, end result was gorgeous. If you haven't been to that gallery, you should see it. It's an amazing masterpiece of not just Asian art, but of cultural achievement in a city that people like to think of as backwater, but is not. Can you talk about how many people were involved in that? Because you had parties, you had people who had to coordinate with the museum, you had people who had to shoot the event, blah, blah, blah. That was a masterpiece, by the way, and I thought Culture Map covered it quintessentially.
Yeah, that was a really big project that took over starting in the summer, and I think that sort of a deal was inked between the museum and Culture Map to really get a close-up view of Saibo Kong, who did this installation with gunpowder drawings. It is
Can't pronounce his name again.
Saibo Tong.
We need a lot
I
of
had like an hour
practice.
That's
lesson.
why I didn't say it, because I couldn't remember how to pronounce it.
And in terms of graphics and multimedia, what made it possible was this company involved in Culture Map called Mouthwatering Media that does all of our programming, and they developed this module platform to do, like, say, an audio photo essay, which really allowed it to come alive. And so I was able to interview the curator of the Asian art department and set that up and do sort of like a mini retrospective entirely online that really complemented what was eventually made for this gallery. And so to do like sort of that whole stream of events where we had like months leading up to it in terms of coverage in different types, whether it be audio or video or written. And then on the night, there was this big explosion where you like lit this warehouse on fire basically to make this really dramatic drawing with gunpowder.
Which was dangerous unto itself. I mean, the whole place could have gone up in smoke.
Yeah.
So that element of failure was there.
Yeah, all art should be dangerous.
All
Yeah.
art should be dangerous.
And so there was there were only like 200 seats on bleachers in this warehouse, but then it was like live transmitted, as I was saying, to St. Arnold's Brewery, where there was like a party for the
Well,
admission.
I watched it online. I was at home.
Yeah, and
in
it was
my
online,
pajamas,
too.
watching the
And so-
explosion.
Okay, I will never complain about my job again, by the way.
Yeah, and it was exhausting covering it really closely, but it was also rewarding in the end. And so that was really people working together between Culture Map, the Museum of Fine Arts, and Psy Studio, which is based in New York, and working through translators. He doesn't know any English, and some of the translators didn't seem to know that much either.
But you know, one of
like,
the beautiful things about it was that there were the artist assistants were volunteers from Houston.
yeah, and that was
They were volunteers.
Yeah, it was really
They volunteered to be part of this masterpiece.
yes.
First off, I hope everyone in here subscribes to Culture Map, by the way. So if you not, please do it.